Todd, I am so excited to have you on. The audience at Skeptic has requested an appearance from the godfather of Joseph Smith polygamy, and so we're really grateful to have you here. I, l- I mean, let me start it out. Question: in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we've had a great deal of discussion on Joseph Smith polygamy. Um, have you changed your position? Did Joseph Smith practice polygamy?
No, I haven't changed my position at all. And you just keep getting more information and more verification all the time. I just finished sending in an article to Dialogue on primary documents on Joseph Smith's plural wives, and that have appeared since 1977 when In Sacred Loneliness came out. New documents. And there's some really very important documents that have come out. And I don't know of any really convincing documents against Joseph Smith as a polygamist. Um, so we just, well, Cheryl Bruno found this document of a list of Joseph Smith's wives written by Thomas Bullock,
Yeah,
and Heber C. Kimball. And it's, uh, what was the date?
54.
1854, something like that. I mean, that's really early. And Bullock knew Joseph Smith. He was a scribe for Joseph Smith. And here's this wonderful list of the plural wives that is quite similar to the list I came up with.
Yeah.
So
Isn't that a cool
that's,
discovery? It's pretty awesome.
yeah, yeah. So it's,
And you're right. Just a decade ago, I helped someone, and I bet it's in your new book. I helped someone donate some Mary Elizabeth Lightner uh, writings, a little notebook that was put together. I think they called it the Sidney Gilbert notebook. But it had more of her conversation on relationships with Joseph and included the same sort of secrecy we see. Like, there's more I wish I could tell you, but this is where I'm going to cut it off. Children, you know, we see a lot of that. Uh,
where
this
were they donated? I'm not sure I've seen those.
this was at the church history library, and so I'll send them to you. I bet you have seen them. Um,
Okay.
but I'll send them over. One of the memorable statements in it is that Joseph tells her the Book of Mormon will be proven true during your lifetime. Do you remember that?
Huh.
No? All right. Well, I need to send this to you. That's a pretty memorable quote.
Okay.
So this came out, what was it, just last year, maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think 2022.
2022. And this is all of the actual documents. Now, it's
Written by the women.
written by the women themselves. Oh, I love it. What led you to publish this?
I I was writing that little article about for Joe Geisner in Joe Geisner's book, and
Uh,
as I was going back and looking at the documents I had, like letters that I was writing when I was researching in Sacred Loneliness, I found a bunch of these documents that I'd transcribed, and I've always thought, these should be published, and so I started collecting them, and Gary Bergera was at Signature was very interested, so it all came together, and so it's wonderful that these women have. I quoted a lot of these documents, but it's nice to have the whole document. It's just wonderful to have the whole document. Read the whole autobiography or read the whole letter. There's letters, excerpts from diaries.
are the affidavits in here?
There's some affidavits quoted, but not. I didn't emphasize that because a lot of the affidavits they're just like a skeleton structure, and they just put in the date. and
Right, absolutely.
things like that. But there's a couple I quoted in there.
So the goal of this is actually to bring out these women's voices.
Yeah, and and there's a lot about Joseph Smith and these women getting married in Nauvoo. They look back toward that. Toward the end of their lives, these women who were in Utah, who had been in Nauvoo and married Joseph Smith, they were a lot of people looked to them um, for their memories. They became very important for that reason because you had this conflict of the RLDS church and the LDS church over polygamy. And so they became quite important for that reason. And of course, Andrew Jensen collected information from them, and he created an important list. And when was it? Was it 1890? 1887, I think. Yeah.
One of the big things people are saying right now is that we shouldn't take serious any of these accounts because they're so late. And you already mentioned here we have a list of wives in 1854. That's actually not that late. Um, Talk to me like I don't have a degree in history. Why would I take seriously an account written 40 years and after an event in someone's life?
Yeah. Well, um, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and maybe I ought to write something about it at some point. Um, but you call it late evidence. Sometimes I call it retrospective evidence, where you're looking back. And this 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 retrospective evidence is important, very, very important. It's very valuable. It can be very emotional, very moving, and certainly all human beings have flaws in their memories. And the closer you are to the event, the sharper the memory is. But we still have often really good memories of our early life. So, the example I give is I asked my dad when he was in his late 80s about his experiences during World War II. Uh, and he just traveled around America getting trained to be an airplane mechanic. And he told me, he told every place he went, the people he knew, and some of the things he did, these memories were very vivid to him. Now, of course, it, what you do as a historian, you get all kinds of different evidence and you put it together. And all kinds of different evidence has strengths and weaknesses. And so it's good that you put it all together to make a kind of a weaving, a tapestry of to tell the story. And so often with retrospective evidence, you get the dates wrong. Often, like second grade, I have no idea what year that was when I went to second grade, though I do have some memories,
Right.
back then. And often you find that when you talk with some of your siblings about things that happened in your early life, it's like one person remembers something and no one else remembers it at all. We were all there,
Mhm.
So human beings, we're not absolutely scientific recordings of everything that happened, but we do have vivid memories, and some people have very vivid memories. Their memories are very good, even when they're old. So, um, I have really, really important documents in that book that are retrospective. And so some people are so absolute about it. It's like, no, we will not use anything that is not absolutely contemporary. And I think that's kind of a lack of judgment. As a historian, you use all kind of evidence, and you weave it together, and you look at the strengths and the weaknesses of it. For dates, if you have if you have an autobiography, you use contemporary things to make the dates more solid. Um, so, um,
I think that's really good. One of the things I think when I'm looking at retrospective things is, it's something that Cheryl Bruno and Michelle Stone argue in their article. I think we should look at motivations of why people write things. And so when you're looking at Joseph
yeah,
Smith, of course he's putting this
yep,
together.
sure,
He wants to
yeah.
create memory, although I don't know that they should use that word for their
We're
audience.
all human. We all have biases. Yeah,
Yeah, they're bringing that in. I, but that's a little different than a mass hoax coming over a whole society, right?
yeah. And there's so many like autobiographies that deal with Joseph Smith and his polygamy, like the Helen Mar Whitney memoir and the Elizabeth Rollins Lightning autobiography. And you can't just throw these out and not even deal with them at all. You have to deal with them seriously.
And what's interesting is if we have these documents that are, uh, forged might be too far, but not really too far. Um, these documents that are allegedly fake, or they've inserted Joseph's polygamy to 'em, it doesn't make sense to me that you would write a personal letter to your children about this that you never publish and never send to anyone, and we discover it later, right? It's it's bad logic.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What is, Todd, I kind of had the impression that, if I was going to say it, the thesis of In Sacred Lonely, did you come up with the title of In Sacred Loneliness?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I was just struck with, the view of polygamy as a sacred thing. And at the same time that so many wives in practical polygamy were quite separate, living quite separately from the husband. And that theme came out enough in these documents that I started thinking about it and researching it.
I think it's a brilliant title. I think it's obviously it sticks with all of us, but I think there's a religious duty and I believe them that there's a sort of spiritual component to this, that they felt at times that this was a really good thing. But I also recognize that this was a great sacrifice, and it did. I mean, they're a little bit like cloistered nuns who weren't expecting that life to begin with, right? Um, I like that a lot in Sacred Loneliness. When I read it, in your telling, is Joseph Smith sincere in his understanding of plural marriage?
Yeah, I think he was very influenced by um, examples from the Old Testament, like Abraham. And so um, I definitely I see that religious background there. Um, that doesn't tell the whole story. Like, yes, he was very influenced by the Old Testament and Abraham and so on, and story of the talents in the New Testament, which he interpret as a polygamous kind of thing. Yeah, you know, his marriages were very complex, and so there's other elements too that like I'm not crazy about, like marrying um, teens who are quite young
Yeah, absolutely.
and marrying women who are married to other men. Um, so it was complex historical
Yeah.
happening, Joseph Smith's polygamy in Nauvoo.
It doesn't fill me with warm fuzzies. I don't feel that when I'm reading this raw history. You've been paying attention. Your book came out. What was the reaction to In Sacred Loneliness? I want us to kind of map out. I know where we are now. Remember when the New York Times or CNN announced the Mormon Church finally admits Joseph Smith has 40 wives? We have that moment, and then people have been reacting to it. They had the gospel topics essay, and we had the ending with the manifesto. What was the knowledge of Joseph Smith's wives before your book came out? What was the response to your book, and what's happened since?
Well, there were historians who had written about Joseph Smith's plural wives, like Daniel Bachman, and who's quite conservative person, and Richard Van Wagner, who wrote a history of polygamy and he wrote a whole article about polyandry. So it was generally known, but I guess my book kind of dramatized it. And I think people, yeah, with my book, 33 plural wives kind of became, I don't think, I don't think conservative Mormons realized that there were 33 wives involved. Um, and I guess my book kind of dramatized it and made it real in a way that was. And as far as responses go, some people were very, very disturbed by it, and other people, conservative Mormons, just seemingly read it and just enjoyed it. So very different responses from different people.
I often think about this period in the 90s. I'm a convert to the church. I joined as a teenager in 95, and I remember constantly hearing people say, even though they had Section 132 in the Doctrine and Covenants, say polygamy was started on the trek west because so many people were dying, so many husbands because of persecution or otherwise, and so we need to take care of the other women, and so plural marriage was introduced. And Joseph Smith was completely left out of that story. Um, and even as a historian working for the church, when I visited Nauvoo with Joseph Smith Papers guys, they missionaries would give a spiel, and afterwards we'd talk to them and say, "Hey, why are you saying this? This isn't accurate," and they'd kind of be resistant to that. And and now we've changed. I think your book does get that trajectory started, and then maybe Rough Stone Ruling, and then the Gospel Topics essays. Mm. When your book came out, did you have a polygamy skeptic response to it at all?
No, and where you might expect that is from the Community of Christ Church, which was still the RLDS church when I started going there. And I went to do research at the RLDS library in the temple there. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know the RLDS people really at all, and they were they were very welcoming and helped me with my research. Um, and I remember one person who I won't name, but involved with RLDS Mormon history, and he said when he had gone through his life looking at things so much from Emma Smith's point of view, and look kind of accepting that there was polygamy, but kind of not liking the polygamous wives. And he said reading my book made him, for the first time, seeing it from how difficult it was from the plural wives point of view also. Like like Emily Partridge kind of getting kicked out of the house, and kind of it was de facto divorce. It was very, very tough on her. Um,
Yeah, that account, which I'm assuming is in your documents book, is one of our best, right? At the daily
yeah.
life. And gosh, it hurts to read.
So anyway, RLDS people, historians at least, had accepted that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, but there are break-off groups who have not accepted that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. So modern break-off groups um, kind of continue that old RLDS tradition, but I didn't run into it much. So it's been a more recent thing. Like for me, like only the last 1 or 2 years, I've run into people who deny that Joseph Smith was a polygamist.
So your article is coming out in Dialogue. Do we have a publication date yet?
No, no,
No.
it's yeah, it's I just sent it in the email last night. It's
Perfect.
the finished copy. So
Anishka. So we have a
so who
year.
knows? A year?
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about that. I think uh, obviously you deserve great applause, and you've gotten great applause for your work on Joseph's Wives that continues to impact um, readers and ponders of the topic ever since. And your
Thank you, thank you.
documents is very valuable, particularly at this moment when we see so much rhetoric to say these documents don't exist. So I really thank you for that. And I thank you for joining me. I'm a big Todd Compton fan, so
Well, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've enjoyed your posts and that I've seen in the Facebook. We're kind of Facebook friends, and
We
it's
sure are.
been fun to learn about your family and
Thanks, Todd.
and your occasional podcasts that I've seen.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.